the last 12 to 15 years, we haven't obviously seized any of these.
Yes, our city, moving forward, it's about the cultural shift, the cultural mindset shift, the living conditions of shifting to a more economically environmental.
We have to be proactive, looking at the things we know are in front of us, but also planning for
the importance of being able to get the job done.
Hi there, it's WAMC News Director Ian Pickus, and on this episode of the WAMC News Podcast, what Albany's leading mayoral candidates have to say about the environment. Last week on Earth Day, WAMC put on an environmental forum with the candidates who want to be the next mayor of Albany. Common Council President Corey Ellis, Dorcia Pleers, the Chief City Auditor, businessman Dan Cerruti, and County Legislator Carolyn McLaughlin are running to replace Mayor Kathy Sheehan, who's not seeking a fourth four-year term. As you'll hear, I moderated the panel. Good afternoon and welcome to WAMC's live broadcast of the 2025 Albany Mayoral Forum in partnership with the New York League of Conservation Voters Education Fund. It's 4 p.m. I'm Ian Pickus.
And I'm Lucas Willard. We're coming to you from the Linda in Albany. In a moment, we'll hear from our partners on this Earth Day Forum, and we'll meet with the candidates.
The primary is coming up on June 24th, and joining us today are four candidates who are hoping to replace outgoing Mayor Kathy Sheehan, a Democrat who is leaving office after 3 four-year terms.
The Democratic candidates before us today include businessman Dan Cerruti, who has not held public office, Common Council President Corey Ellis, Albany County Legislator Carolyn McLaughlin, and Chief City Auditor Dorcia Pleers.
Before we begin today's forum, our fellow panelist Peter Trimarchi with the League has a few words of welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone, and happy Earth Day. My name is Peter Trimarchi, and I'm a partner at the law firm of Reed Smith and the chair of the Capital Region chapter of the New York League of Conservation Voters, or NYLCV. The NYLCV Education Fund is a statewide organization whose mission is to educate, engage, and empower New Yorkers to be effective advocates for the environment. As we celebrate Earth Day, we must remember that the most important thing we can do for the environment is to vote. And it's critical that New Yorkers have the opportunity to hear directly from candidates so they can make informed decisions when they go to the polls. And that's why we're here today. I'd like to thank WAMC for hosting this forum with us, and thank you to each of the candidates for joining us.
And before we get to today's questions, which come from the League and WAMC, each candidate will have the opportunity for a 1-minute opening statement, and we're going to go in alphabetical order in the way that the candidates are seated just here to my left on stage, beginning with Dorcia Pleers.
Thank you and happy Earth Day. My values have been shaped by my upbringing. My grandmother was a waitress for 50 years, my grandfather a janitor, my mom a single mom of 4, and also a D.C. police officer, and my dad who unfortunately passed away by HIV. He was a substance user. That foundation really has laid the foundation for who I am as a person, but also as a public servant. It is that work that shaped the values of integrity, hard work, and service to others. And that service to others laid the foundation for my work as a public servant here in the city of Albany. I am running for mayor because I have a deep appreciation for our city. I believe in our city, and I'm committed to our city's future. As the daughter of a police officer, I know how critical it is to ensure that we have safe streets. As the mom of 2 small girls.
That's time. Auditor, we will have more from you as the hour goes on. Thank you. Let's go now to Dan Cerruti, please.
Hi, thanks again for putting this thing together and having us on. I'm Dan Cerruti. I'm running for mayor because I love this city, and I do not like what we have let it become. So I think we can do better. I also love the environment. I worry about the earth that we're leaving my grandchildren. As a city mayor, there are some limitations on what the mayor can do and budget limitations, but I do believe the mayor can become an advocate and an educator and shape policy in the city. And the biggest thing I think we face is the solid waste landfill issue. We've punted on this for years. We haven't done much about it, and it's time. And so I'm hoping we'll discuss that at some length. Thank you.
Thank you. We can now go to Corey Ellis for a 1-minute opening remark.
Thank you, and happy Earth Day, and thank you for having this forum. I've gotten to public life because I've always put people over politics, and no more than you can see that when it comes to the environment. We can't let our political views hamper and stop us from improving our environment. As mayor of this city, I will become a staunch advocate on how we look at our parks, how we look at our water, and also, as Mr. Cerruti stated, our landfill, and try to capitalize on some of those missed opportunities. So with me, I didn't get into politics to be a politician. I got into politics to bring voice to those who traditionally had no voice. And holding this forum today on the environment, it does bring into effect some voices that haven't been heard enough when it comes to environmental justice. So thank you for having this forum on Earth Day, and look forward to our discussion.
Thank you, Corey Ellis, and Carolyn McLaughlin will have the closing words of this opening statement.
Thank you. I too say Happy Earth Day to everyone. And the reason I'm here today is because I felt it was important to be a part of this discussion, because I tell you, when I turn on the faucet, I want clean water to come out. When I go outside to the park, I want to be able to breathe clean air. When I send maybe go to the park, I'm going to the pool, and we're anxious to have a new park with new pools. We want to make sure that it's in an environment where people feel safe. When I just sit out in the yard, I want to smell clean air. I want to make sure that I'm not being hampered by the fact that there are chemicals in the air that people feel are hampering their life, providing them with health concerns that they would not ordinarily have. So I'm here today because I really do want to be about educating the community to make sure that they know that the role that they can play in making sure that they have a healthy community, and that we educate them on policies that are in place and educate them on how they can contribute to future policies.
Thank you very much. And now, as we move to the questions, we will have, for each question, 90 seconds to answer, and we'll go in a different order for each question. This is a forum, not a debate. If there is a reason to allow some extra time, then we can grant that. But we're hoping to get to a lot today, and time is short. Peter has our first question.
Thank you. Our first question is about transportation. Transportation is one of the largest sources of greenhouse gas emissions. Reducing emissions from the transportation sector is crucial to meeting the state's emission reduction goals. But in Albany, most people still rely on cars to get to work and run errands. As mayor, how will you prioritize and invest in sustainable transportation options?
And we are going to start with Carolyn McLaughlin to answer first.
The first thing that came to mind when you talked about transportation, particularly what came up for me, was public transportation. And how do we increase the use of public transportation? And I believe one of those ways that you can do that is to make sure that it is accessible to every community. Because if it's not convenient for you to take public transportation, you are going to continue to rely upon your car. And if there's 2 or 3 cars in each household, think about that. As each car leaves the home, how it's contributing to the emission problem that we have. I believe that it's a partnership with public transportation that we have, education to families about how they can utilize bicycles, and the things that we've done in the city in the past regarding bicycle lanes. How do we make sure that that's something that's convenient for people to use? Because I've heard there's some comments about the fact that the bicycle lanes are not being used. Why is that? So let's address some of those issues. Even though there have been solutions that have been put in place, but they are not addressing the issue, we need to talk about that. We need to go back and revisit some of the concerns that people have in the community. And then as it relates to the electrical vehicles that the fleet that the city has, I would advocate that as we replace cars, we would go toward EV vehicles, but we would also, throughout the city, make sure that individuals have access to electrical stations.
Thank you very much. Let's go to Corey Ellis with the same question.
Yes, it's a lifestyle change. We live in upstate New York, and people traditionally, lifestyle is cars. We had, our malls are outside of our city, so people get used to having cars. So we have to develop a city that is walkable, also develop a city where if people are coming into our city, how do we advocate for more commuter stations outside of our city so we begin to lessen the amount of cars coming into the city? And having a partner like CDTA on board with how they're using their buses can help as well. But it definitely is a lifestyle change. And that when you're mayor, you have to have those. I'd like to see more public service announcements going on about how we can begin the process of having that lifestyle change, how we begin the process of looking at our emissions and not always looking at the car as the immediate first thing. And as Carolyn said, we have bike lanes now, which was a great step. But also that's part of that lifestyle change, encouraging more people to bike and being out there and being an advocate for the city, because that is a lifestyle change. There's no doubt about it. We have, winters where people don't think about transportation other than getting in their car. So it's definitely a lifestyle change that if you're the mayor of Albany, you begin to advocate and have those public service announcements out there.
Thank you. To Dan Cerruti next. Same question.
I think it starts with public transportation. The CDTA is a great system. We may take it for granted, but I've been around the country and it's quite good. Unfortunately, as Carolyn said, I don't think it's extensive enough. I think we need to expand the routes. I've lived in a lot of cities with public transportation, and I agree with Mr. Ellis. It's a cultural thing, and so we need to work on it. We need to work on it from a long-term point of view. Hybrid vehicles are clearly the answer, which means charging stations, ubiquitous charging stations. That's part of the culture. We need to encourage walkability. So as an example, I'd like to consider a trolley that used to exist, that runs perhaps on Broadway or Pearl, something downtown, to encourage people who come downtown to not have to take a car. Right? This also alleviates parking challenges that we have. So it's outside the box thinking like that I think will help us. But again, at the top, it's advocacy from the mayor's office, and it's innovation. And I think we have to do all of these things at once. So.
Thank you. We will end this round with Dorcia Pliers. 90 seconds to you.
Thank you. So as mayor, I would promote a culture that really supports pedestrian-friendly spaces. That's one of the biggest barriers, and hence why people rely on public transportation, cars. But in order to promote a pedestrian-friendly city, that would require investments in public transportation, as was talked about, and it's not just about more bus routes, but also reducing the time that people are waiting for buses. I hear from parents all the time waiting for their children to catch that bus to get to school. Sometimes our kids are late, and so people get frustrated with our public transportation system. Investments in pedestrian-friendly spaces, including looking at our downtown and other business corridors. How can we create and invest in more green space, sidewalks, streets, making sure that those are in good shape. And also promoting ride sharing, and investing and promoting in that ride sharing and deterring people from really relying on their cars. And then lastly, there are so many great organizations, nonprofit, doing some of this work. As a city, we need to do a better job partnering with our government partners, but also our nonprofit partners as well.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Lucas Willard from WAMC.
Interstate 787 brings thousands of commuters each day into the city of Albany, but has been criticized for separating New York's capital city from its waterfront. As the state reimagines the future of the roadway, what is your vision to accommodate commuters while also helping Albany reclaim its access to the Hudson River?
And we'll begin this round with Corey Ellis.
Well, once again, it's a cultural change. It's a cultural shift that we're talking about. I'm part of a group right now called Reimagine Albany, and we're focused on what happens if 787 is removed. How does that affect the environment? How does that affect those communities positively or negatively? But 787 at the time was built because it was the information highway. So that was to get people in and out of our cities quickly. But we need to look at whether it comes down or lower it or get rid of it, we have to look at the environmental impact it's going to have in those neighborhoods immediately, because anytime a big construction like that is going to have an impact. It can have a positive impact or a negative impact. Part of a positive impact of removing 787 is making sure the neighborhoods that border 787 see a benefit to that coming down, and not just looking at how do we attract more people to our waterfront. That's a good thing, but we need to make sure the communities that border on that waterfront, those communities are growing, and they feel the effect of the progress of something that has continuously separated our neighborhoods throughout this city.
Thank you, Corey Ellis. We go to Dan Cerruti next.
I lived in Boston through the Big Dig, which was the largest, first huge project of this sort in the country. It took longer than expected, it cost more than expected, and it transformed the city of Boston. I'm encouraged, actually, by what the state is doing in the Department of Transportation. I think they get the magnitude. We're talking billions, and the time frame, we're talking years. So I'm very encouraged by it. I think we need to take our time and do this right. The options that they have are all sensible. I personally, and not that it matters that much because we need a lot of people to weigh in on this, would like to see the southern end come down. We don't need the southern end of a highway, and that would give us access to the water and access to neighborhoods. And so I think that's a positive step. I just think that we should not, as a city, sit and wait for that transformation. It's going to take time, and we need to do all that we need to do in parallel and ahead of time, and then work very closely with the state. One of the things that happen across this country is that cities let this stuff happen to them, and I don't mean that in an ignorant way, but the cities, state and federal money did things to cities, and we cannot let that happen. We need to participate, and people get this. The 81 is coming down in Syracuse. My daughter lives in Syracuse. It's a thoughtful project, so I'm very encouraged by this opportunity, and I want to think about it that way as an opportunity.
Thank you very much. Dorcia Plier, same question to you, please.
So as mayor, one of the first things that I would do is purchase our property closest to the waterfront. At the current moment, we do not own that property. Most people assume that we do. It's owned by the state. The city has managed that property for a very long time. And so first order of business would be to purchase that property so that we are in control of our own destiny. Once the property is purchased, we can then start to program that very valuable piece of land closest to the water in a way that attracts more families, more people, and that's entertainment. That is some low-hanging fruit, pedestrian-friendly spaces and some infrastructure investments. In addition to that, I would be focused on revitalizing our downtown as a way to connect, access not just downtown, but to the waterfront. So there's some continuity in having access to both. In both of those instances, creating investment and making those investments as mayor to ensure that we have more people taking advantage of those spaces. I see short-term and long-term planning as it relates to 787. There are some low-hanging fruit things that we can be doing right now as a city while we plan ahead and aggressively work to reclaim and revitalize and reconnect access to our waterfront.
Thank you. And Carolyn McLaughlin gets this question last to end the round.
I would just like to ensure that while the 787 project is a very exciting one, that it does not go the same way in the neighborhoods that are closest to 787 and the waterfront do not have the negative impact that was placed upon them when Empire State Plaza was built. That was a major undertaking. And as I think of 787 coming down, I see it the same way. So we have to make sure that resources, as someone just stated, I think it might have been Dr. Plier's, that you got to prepare for things such as this. The communities have to be prepared so that they are not negatively impacted, because it's not just about the waterfront. It is about neighborhoods that are within walking distance to the waterfront. And if we want those families and residents that are in those neighborhoods continue to feel that they too are important to the city of Albany, we've got to make sure that they're part of the planning, they're part of the process, they are part of their given an understanding of what is taking place around them. There's some exciting things that have been done down at the waterfront now to make sure people understand this is your waterfront. This is an opportunity for you to take ownership. But we've got to make sure that this is not a process that's done in darkness so that people don't understand what is taking place in their neighborhood.
Thank you very much. Our next question is a two-part question. First, Albany has long used its Rapp Road landfill to manage solid waste generated by city residents and businesses, but the landfill is approaching capacity, and the next mayor will need to come up with a new solution for handling the city's waste in a cost-effective manner. How do you plan to phase out the use of the Rapp Road landfill, and how do you plan to incentivize waste reduction? Secondly, what are your plans for solid waste once the city's landfill is full and closed? And we will start with Dan Cerruti in this round.
I'll answer both together. The landfill solid waste challenge is probably one of the biggest challenges and also one of the biggest opportunities we have. Across the country, the amount of waste that goes into landfills is around 50% or less. We're probably 75 to 90%. The best, the gold standard is closer to 10%. So we need a comprehensive plan to deal with this, and there are modern technologies. The first piece of it is recycling. Well, we have single stream recycling. It doesn't work. I was in two other places I lived, and we went to dual stream, to separate the paper effectively. Dual stream is a much more effective way to recycle, and you make money on what you can recycle. The second part of it is organics, right? So which is primarily food and yard waste. We can probably take a third of the waste approximately is organics, and they can be processed with good technology, and they make money. And then there's solid waste, which can be dealt with and shrunk to as low as 10%. So we need a three-pronged approach. We need a new transfer station. There is land adjacent to the landfill. There is time to do this. It will cost money, but there are opportunities to get substantially more efficient across the board, and this will be one of the biggest priorities I will have. There are experts across the country who specialize in this. They've helped many other towns do this and cities, and we need to work with local other municipalities and make sure we build a processing plant of sorts and a culture for the next 25 to 50 years.
Thank you very much. I'm going to allow just a couple of extra seconds for the other candidates since it's a two-part question, as I did just now. Dorcia Pleers, next to you.
Thank you. So this is the story that never ends as it relates to our landfill, but there has been a lot of work already done and a lot of taxpayer dollars spent on looking at this issue and figuring out next steps. As the current chief city auditor, I'm not a big fan of spending additional taxpayer dollars to continue to research this issue. There was money spent to hire a firm. A plan has been developed. And as mayor, what I would do is look at that plan, which the recommendation that came from the firm that was hired, given all of the solutions that were out there at the time, was to transfer to a transfer station model. Given that some time has lapsed, I would look at some of the existing innovations, if there are any existing models that maybe we overlooked, and if those don't fit our needs, move forward with execution of the plan. There is a plan already in place. While doing so, there is a need to look at how do we repurpose our current landfill and the campus. Some have suggested maybe we repurpose it for community recreation. So as mayor, I would also simultaneously be looking at how we repurpose the landfill to best meet the needs of our city. And then the second part of this question, looking at coming up with a comprehensive plan for recycling and composting. Recycling and composting requires cultural norms to be changed. And we see residents who put out TVs and other items that should not be out there, but it requires education. Thank you.
You very much. Carolyn McLaughlin, next to you, please.
I believe the key to dealing with this issue has to do with education. People need to be educated to the fact of how closing of the landfill is going to impact them as an individual, as a family, as a community. Because sometimes I think people just really take advantage of the fact that it's so easy to put your trash out, so easy to put out those household goods out in front of your house, and the next 2 hours later they're gone. But do you not know where that stuff is going, how it is impacting you, and in 2028, the way that that's done is going to be very different. We have to educate the community. I also believe that this has got to be one of the number one priorities. We talk about other things such as violence prevention and affordable housing and economic development, but right up there with those items should be, what are we doing with the landfill? I'm a little cautious about telling someone we're going to turn this into a recreation area. The landfill, recreation, the two just don't fit for me. And if we're going to educate people that might be a use, we have to educate people to let them know that this is a possibility. The transfer station idea has been discussed, and I think that is the more viable solution in the immediate future. We have to prepare people for that, because that's going to require extra dollars coming out of your household. If we have to move your trash hundreds of miles away, if not 1,000,
Thank you.
You have got to be prepared to do that.
That's time, and we will end this round with Corey Ellis.
Yes, thank you. As Dr. Pleer said, there has been a study done, and we will look at that and take those recommendations and adjust them to when it's time for our landfill to be closing. Because this is not something that's new. It's been done in other cities before. So closing our landfill, we can figure out how to adjust to that. The cultural adjustment is looking at how do we begin to educate our citizens on composting and recycling in a better way. And the first thing I would do, I said this 12 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, is working with our school districts, starting with our young people, starting in our schools, figuring out how we partner up with our school district to start at an early age to begin to learn about composting. What does that look like? To learn about recycling. And I believe our young people can influence their parents to change their cultural norms. Because our young people have major influence over their parents when they come home and say, Mom or Dad, oh, this is where this goes. So I think it has to be a community effort. I believe we start with our schools, and we start with our non-for-profits that are doing this work, and we really engage them, because we know the landfill is closing, and transfer station looks like the viable option. And I don't want to try to reinvent the wheel. I want to take what those suggestions we've had on the table and move forward.
Thank you, Corey Ellis. And before our next question, I will just say, if you're joining us on the radio right now, we are listening to a live Albany mayoral forum with 4 candidates who are running for mayor. This is a joint project of WAMC and the New York League of Conservation Voters. And Peter Tremarky has our next question.
Our next question is about food waste. A substantial portion of food waste ends up in landfills, greatly contributing to the production of methane emissions, a particularly potent greenhouse gas. At the same time, approximately 12% of the population in the 11-county food shed of the capital region is food insecure. Policies and interventions that reduce and redirect surplus food can benefit the environment while also improving food security and public health. What steps as mayor would you take to reduce the amount of food waste going into landfills and address food insecurity in Albany?
And Dorcia Pleers will begin this round.
Thank you. So I would see my role as mayor really being a convener, convening our nonprofits, our school district, and others who are stakeholders in this, addressing this matter. One, we have some gems in our city like the Raddick Center, who I've had the privilege of working with and partnering with in the past. They are the experts. And again, as it has been talked about, there is no need to reinvent the wheel. It is working with organizations such as that, in addition to some of our food distribution organizations like the Regional Food Bank, our churches, to ensure that we are doing both. We can do both. One, reducing the waste and focusing more on composting, but also working to ensure that we are addressing the food insecurity issue that impacts us all. In one of the wealthiest nations, there is no reason why a child should go to bed hungry, and it is a matter of and just having the will to connect our families with the resources that we have.
Thank you. Our round now goes to Carolyn McLaughlin to answer next.
I heard something the other day that talked about the fact of that we throw away so much food.
Thank you.
And one of the solutions that this organization offered was, when you go to the grocery store, do not buy more than you need. That was a basic thing they had to say about the fact that you will go home, you will use what you bought, and you will not have the surplus that people, I don't know about you, but I know many people that don't eat leftovers. So if you don't buy too much, you won't have leftovers. And this was a very basic premise that they had: do not buy more than you need. But when you happen to do that, we've heard the word composting several times. This was another issue that they talked about, and that we have to teach people more about composting. I've heard this word for decades, and I've seen people do it in their yard, in small batches. We need to educate. Education is key to making sure that people understand the benefits of composting. Also, it's just I do believe it just comes down to the fact that sometimes people feel that they have a lack of. There's so many people, generations that continue to live that didn't have enough. So they believe having more than enough is the answer. Teach them that is not always the answer. But to make sure that every community is not served the same, because some people have more access than others. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Thank you very much. Next to Corey Ellis, please.
In the greatest country in the world, with the most resources and the most money in the world, it's hard for me to believe that people are starving in this country. And I'm pretty sure we do have some folks who are doing that. But that is because the lack of information on where to go. Also, some of our policies. We have our regional food bank. We have our food pantries. Folks knowing how to access that food that they need, but also some of our policies we need to really look at when we're looking at food insecurities. We have some policies that prevent some restaurants from giving people food. Why do we have it that way? If we have this food insecurities, then our policies have to match up with that. But for people to be in this country and starving, it's hard to imagine. Because we have so much abundance of food. We just need to make sure people have access to the information on how to get to that food and make sure our policies match up. As I said earlier, composting. Carolyn, Dr. McLaughlin said it best. We've been talking about it for years. We need to act on it. We need to bring in our schools and say, we need to make this happen. If we have to go after money together with our non-for-profits, make sure we have composting things in our schools. Because that way we begin to change the pendulum of how our culture and our lives of our children change, and then when they become adults, that culture begins to change as well.
Thank you very much, and we will end this round of questions with Dan Cerruti, please.
I think we've all said that there is cultural change in education required, and that starts with the administration. We have opportunity here. We have food insecurities in the city, but based on what I've learned, there is available. The food is available. We have a coordination problem in the so-called last mile. And so if we have some extra effort to try to figure out how to make sure that we get the food to the right places, which means working in the neighborhoods, on the streets, with schools, with the not-for-profits, we can do better. That said, we buy too much. We don't have a grocery store in the South End. We don't have a grocery store in the North End. We need to fix those problems. Those are not fair to the communities, and it's one of the reasons why people bulk up. So that's another piece of it. When the day is done, there is still food waste and organic food waste, and this is a huge opportunity, and again, cultural and education, but this is an opportunity where, as I said, about a third of the waste stream in Albany and across the country is food waste. So composting can occur in two ways. One, local, in your own backyard, which is an education, especially for folks in poverty who may or may not have the ability to do that, and citywide. So there is tons of opportunity here, and we need a comprehensive thought around this, and I think we can do better.
Thank you very much. At this point of our forum, we have a lightning round planned, and for ease of asking these questions, I'm going to ask that we go from right to left down the table and not change the order, and please keep them short. It's meant to be a lightning round, and we'll start with Dorcia Pleers and then move to your left. Dorcia Pleers, do you compost?
Yes.
Okay, Dan?
Yes, at our camp.
Yes, not in Albany.
No, I don't.
Okay, the next question is, what is your favorite park?
Washington Park.
My home park, Richfield Park.
Crank Park.
Lincoln Park.
We got 4 different answers there. Do you use a reusable water bottle?
I do, even though I have a water bottle here now, but yes, I do have a big bottle that I carry around with me.
Yes, we have a container of reusable water bottles in my home.
Yes.
Yes.
What is your favorite way to get around the city of Albany?
Walking.
Walking.
Of course, walking.
And
When you first said that, I said, I drive, but I do love to walk. But I will tell you, I reduced my walking when I fell because this pavement was uneven. So it frightened me that now I have to look with my head down when I'm walking. So therefore, I really can't enjoy what is around me. I prefer walking, but I have been scared because and that's an issue that we have to deal with. I know this is a long answer, but I'm going to tell you. So that's why I drive.
it's okay to bring some nuance to the lightning round. So this is our last lightning round question.
Right.
Do you own an electric vehicle?
I have a hybrid vehicle.
No, no longer.
No.
No.
Okay, thank you. Our next question, back to our regular format now, comes from Lucas Willard from WAMC.
The City of Albany has begun updating its climate action plan. What activities and goals would you like to see included, and how would you propose such actions be financed?
And we'll begin this round with 90-second answers with Carolyn McLaughlin, please.
The Climate Action Plan is something that I'm really not as don't have an extended understanding of, and where the city is trying to go with it. But I do understand that if we're going to make sure that we have clean air, that we're going to make sure that environmental justice issues are addressed in certain neighborhoods, but that the city has to have an opportunity to have advisory councils, an advisory board where people from all over the city are weighing in on the climate action plan. I do know that this Department of Sustainability is concerned about the future of Albany. But again, I always go back to the idea of education. If you do not educate the community as a whole on what these plans are, there's no way we can all contribute to finding solutions and making sure that our city is prepared for the future. You got to prepare the people to be prepared for the future in the city of Albany.
And next we go to Corey Ellis.
Yeah, any climate action plan, when you're looking at it, and I want to address the funding, because you did say something about money, correct? Was I?
Correct, yes. The question was, what activities and goals would you like to see included, and how would you propose such actions be financed?
Well, when you're looking at a climate action plan, we're looking at a city that's strapped for funding. So when you put this plan together, we like it to be in where the direction of our state's going. Because anytime you put a plan together like this, if the state is going in that direction, you get more funding. There's a lot of federal funding out there for how you look at your city and climate. So for me, is looking at how do we have a grant writer who begins to look at specifically funding in any plan we come up with and we move forward with. But when we're looking at, for me, in our city, when we're looking at our sewage and our water, we have to make sure those things are protected because we have a lot of flooding that's happening in our city, and we have to address those issues. We still have that problem in certain neighborhoods, continuous flooding. As we know, climate is changing every single day, so we have to put in plans to address that so those floodings don't continue in our city.
Thank you. And next we go to Dan Cerruti, please.
The county has a robust climate action plan. The city's is modest. Part of that is funding. Part of that is resources. I think that we've talked about a number of things that are all part of the equation, from hybrid vehicles to walkability to composting and elimination of methane gases. So I think all of the things we've talked about contribute to this. But that said, times and technologies have changed. And I think it is a decent time to take a look at the latest technologies across the board. Again, starting with the county's action plan, which has 15 or so initiatives in it. So, as Corey said, if we follow the state, we follow the county, and we follow common sense and make this part of a long-term, ongoing set of initiatives led by education and behavioral change, we'll make a dent in this.
Thank you very much. Dorsey appears to end this round.
So as mayor, I would be focused on implementing the plan, doubling down on investments in transportation, renewable energy, also not having a missed opportunity when it comes to always ensuring that our residents have access to safe and clean water. But really making sure that we are doubling down on goals and projects that hit those priorities. In terms of how to finance it, again, as Chief City Auditor, I'm always looking at areas of waste and reducing those areas of waste and then reallocating those funds to initiatives such as this, in addition to applying for grant opportunities via the county, the state, and the federal government, even though with the current administration, I'm not sure how much investment we would get on this topic, but relying on those government entities for support, but also private funding, private partnership, and tapping into our philanthropic community.
Thank you very much. Our next question is about the issue of lead and drinking water. The pipes that connect the city's water distribution system to indoor plumbing are a known source of lead contamination, and according to city records, there are nearly 25,000 drinking water service lines, yet for more than 3/4 of them, the city does not have reliable records on whether the pipe is made of lead or not. For the nearly 6,000 pipes the city does have information for, that is, 40%, more than 2,200, are confirmed to contain lead, and that's among the highest percentage in the state. This question will be asked in two parts. The first part, and we'll begin with Corey Ellis, clearly the city can't manage what it can't measure, so as mayor, what steps will you take to find out faster what is the true scope of the city's lead pipe problem?
Lead pipe, lead paint, it's not good for any citizens. So we definitely have to make sure we put the resources behind having that information to move us forward. If you don't have the information, how do you know how to move forward? So I am in support of figuring out how do we pay for that information to make sure it does happen, so we deal with the correct information. As we see our city, and that's why this is really a cultural change. That's what this election is about. It's a cultural shift in dealing with problems that we just pushed down the road for years and years and years and never dealt with them. And part of dealing with them is making sure our citizens understand there's going to be some hard choices, hard decisions that we're going to have to make that's going to move our city forward. And unfortunately, as we move forward, we can't do it alone. And so as we look at what's happening in the federal government, that all is going to affect what happens in our city, what type of funding we get as the federal government continues to cut funding. So we can continue to say, yes, we want to solve this problem, but if we don't have our federal government acting the way it should act and cutting much needed services, we're in trouble. Even one of us wins, we're in trouble. And we have to be realistic about how do we make sure that our citizens are protected, our environment is protected, the water and the pipes in our city
that's
are workable. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we go to Dan Cerruti. Same question to you.
I think the question was about measures. So I think the first thing we have to do, and we've been at this a while, but we probably can be a little more sophisticated. There's a very simple water test, and I did it in my home, and so everyone needs to be encouraged and helped to do that. So the first thing you do is you figure out what your lead rate is. The second thing is analytics. We have educated guesses on when these homes were built, and typically if they're built on one street, typically except downtown Albany, we can gauge the level of the problem, and that's the first thing we have to do. We have to triage this. Not every problem can be fixed at once. For instance, homes with children in them should go to the top of the list. So we have to get analytics done so that we understand how to address this problem across the entire city. There is federal money, there is state money. Unfortunately, some families have to take money out of their pocket. It's typically anywhere between $1,000 to $2,000, depending on where you live. In some of the older homes downtown, it's more money. It's a much more extensive project, which the city has got to bear the burden of with help from the state and the county. So get the data first.
Thank you very much. We go to Dorcia Pliers next.
Thank you. So we know that we have a lead epidemic. We have a lead problem with some of our zip codes in our city, in particular some of our low-income communities having some of the highest rates of lead. And so as mayor, what I would have to decide is, do we invest in quantifying the problem because we know the problem exists, or do we use those funds and invest in just a remediation of the problem? And I'm not just talking about financial resources, but our workforce, human resources. The city has limited capacity. And so as mayor, I would be focused on which makes the most sense from an economic perspective, but also from a workforce perspective. We know the aging infrastructure that we have in our city, and I think that personally, where I sit today, we should be focused on implementation of remediation. I also serve on the Albany County Board of Health, and the lead issue is a significant issue in our city. We know that is a problem, and we need to move forward with the interventions to remediate the issue. And from an equitable lens, we know that there are residents who can't afford to make significant changes. As a city, with funding support, prioritizing houses in neighborhoods where we have low-income residents.
That's time. Thank you very much. And to Carolyn McLaughlin.
I think one of the things that we have to initially do is to make sure that we do have the right analytics. So let's maximize the technology and the individual expertise that we have within the city to make sure that we do have the right numbers. And some numbers that we already have, we know where the problems exist the most in certain neighborhoods to address issues such as this. I watched today, National Grid has been replacing gas lines up and down 2nd Avenue. And so I stopped today and I asked, what are you doing? And he said, one of the workers there told me, and he explained to me that they were replacing the gas lines, but they do this on a regular schedule. And this street has happened to be on the schedule. So we have to develop a schedule such as this so that we don't continue to be behind the times in terms of the infrastructure that is so vital to quality of life in our city. So it's a matter of a plan that has to be put in place that makes sure that things are done on a timeline, so that we're playing catch up right now. And the best way to do that, as I started out, maximize the technology that we have to ensure that we are taking care of the problem as we go.
Thank you very much. For the second part of this question, I'm going to ask you all to keep your answer to about a minute so we can save enough time for a very important round and, fingers crossed, some closing statements. Beginning with you, Dan Cerruti, without a coordinated approach, citywide lead service line replacement can take many years to achieve and could result in construction chaos and concerns about the quality of materials and labor used. As mayor, what will be your plan to get all the lead pipes out quickly, efficiently, and equitably?
So I agree 100%. So as I said, a coordinated, comprehensive plan based on data is exactly what you have to do. There is funding available, but sometimes you can make the case better if you have more data. and I don't know those specifics, but the federal government and the state governments understands the nature of this problem. And I believe that we can make better arguments. I don't know exactly the arguments we've made, but we have not been very successful. So I get the data, I get a comprehensive plan, I take it all the way. We're fighting for our children. The impacts of lead are primarily effects on children, and it's unacceptable. It's absolutely unacceptable. And so let's put a plan together.
Dorcia Pliers, same question to you, please.
So my expertise is public health. What I do know is that just because something is the right thing to do, it doesn't mean that it gets done. And so it requires fierce advocacy. We already know that we have a systemic lead problem in our city. It's been known for decades. And so, yes, I think it's important to have a plan, but even more important, we need to start execution and implementation. There is tons of data that already exists. As I shared, I serve on the Albany County Board of Health. The data is there. We have enough. We are armed with enough data to make informed decisions about how to remediate the problem, and it will require a phased approach. But I would be focused on execution and implementation, in addition to fierce advocacy. Again, just because it's the right thing to do doesn't mean that as a society we always do the right thing. It requires work, advocacy, and determination.
Thank you. Carolyn McLaughlin, same question to you.
I'm sure the current data shows that these problems exist at the highest levels in the poorest communities. In communities that have the oldest housing in the city of Albany. We have a vacant and abandoned building problem that I believe also is connected to the existence of lead, high levels of lead in our community. We have a responsibility to make sure that individuals who own property, who do have access to resources, that they take responsibility for addressing this as well. It cannot be solely on the backs of the city, because we will partner. I think it is our job to help find resources so that individuals can make sure that their homes are safe. But at the same time, I know that we have a lot of property owners who have just abandoned our neighborhoods and contribute to this in a manner that does not serve the community well.
Thank you very much. Let's go to Corey Ellis to wrap up this question on lead and drinking water replacement.
Well, yes, lead in our most challenging communities have really affected those communities. And I'm pretty sure when you look at the data is going to show that in those communities, that's where we find the most lead. I know lead paint in our neighborhoods have been, I know a law firm that represented numerous children, and that was one of their highest money making, was going after companies and building owners for lead paint poisoning of young African-American children. So we have to look at it from an equity lens. We have an older city, and in those neighborhoods where we know the age of those homes, the age of our pipes, we have to really focus there, because it probably hasn't been a priority because it's affecting poor people most of the time. And when we talk about environmental justice, if this was affecting certain upper middle class neighborhoods, these problems would have been dealt with. So when I look at lead pipes and lead paint, we're looking at it from an equitable lens and environmental justice lens.
Thank you, Corey Ellis. And here will be our final question. It's gone fast.
Oh my goodness.
This is a question about battery energy storage systems. Battery energy storage systems, or BESS, store large quantities of electricity and discharge it onto the grid during periods of high demand and high cost. A new incentive program being implemented by NYSERDA is expected to increase the deployment of these systems throughout New York. As mayor of Albany, will you support the construction of these systems, and how would you encourage their development within the city, even if they face a certain level of public opposition?
We're going to begin this round with Dorcia Pliers, and once again, I will ask you to keep your answers to within 1 minute. Thank you very much.
So I'm going to be honest to say this is new terrain for me, so I would have to first do my own research to learn more about the battery energy storage systems that you're talking about, and then also look at the implications of adopting the use of them in our community, and then to explore with the potential opposition would be how it benefits our city. So more homework to do on my end as mayor, but committed to doing the work, the research, and then making a determination based on that work, research, and community input and buy-in.
Carolyn McLaughlin, same question to you.
As we go around the city and talk about the issues such as this, I think we are Office of Sustainability. This is just another one of the issues that they have to put at the top of their list. As I looked around and saw two projects that are going on in the city now as it relates to solar energy. There's a project that's taking place in the South End, and just recently the county executive announced a project that's going on, solar project that's taking place in the North End of the city. I think that looking at more projects such as this will enable us to get partnerships with organizations like NYSERDA, private energy companies that I believe have stepped up to the plate to ensure that people have opportunity to have better sources for energy coming into their homes. So
thank you. That's time
partnerships
for this round. To Corey Ellis next.
Yes, I mean, it's partnerships and looking at battery storage systems, energy storage systems, and I think that is another way where you show that your city is turning the pendulum. It's another way where you can show that we're moving forward along with the times. As Dr. Pleer stated, I need to do more research on this, but anything we can show that this city is moving forward, a project like this will begin to show that. A project like this will begin to show that the city is taking energy seriously if you begin to have a storage system here.
Dan Cerruti, to you to finish this round,
We
please.
should absolutely support this. This is good technology. We need to get ahead of stuff like this. Battery technology has accelerated in the last 15 years, everybody knows. The issue is we have to make sure, and we're smarter than we used to be, we have to make sure that certain communities and neighborhoods are not adversely affected by this. So there are discussions about where this stuff goes. It's all of the same energy discussions that we have faced as a society for 200 to 300 years. We should be smarter. And as a city, we should make sure we don't allow adverse impacts. The energy companies know what they're doing. At the end of the day, there are financial trade-offs. As mayor, we're the chief advocate for the city, and we just need to make sure we protect everybody. But this has got to move forward in the same way that charging stations have to move forward, in the same way that electric vehicles should move forward.
Thank you very much. There's just enough time for everybody to make a short closing statement before we stop. I'm going to ask that we go from left to right, starting with Carolyn McLaughlin, opposite the direction we started for the opening statements, and I can give everybody 30 seconds as we wind up here.
The future of the city of Albany begins with making sure that we have a healthy city, making sure that we have a city that people can go from one end of the city to the other without being adversely impacted, making sure that we're looking at ideas and trying to find solutions to problems that maybe not even exist now. We have to be proactive, looking at the things we know are in front of us, but also planning for the future of such things, such as the landfill. But
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's time. Corey Ellis.
Thank you for the robust discussion. Thank you for everyone out there who's listening. Yes, our city, moving forward, it's about the cultural shift, the cultural mindset shift, the living conditions of shifting to a more economically, environmental friendly city. And as we discussed, a lot of these ideas are here. We just need to be proactive and get in front of where things are going, not only in our city, but around the country. And so I'm just thankful that I'm part of this discussion, and I look forward to...
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. To Dan Cerruti next.
I'll thank you also for raising the consciousness of these issues. These are important to all of us, to our city, to the future of our city. I'd like to say, think about this as opportunity. The last 12 to 15 years, we haven't obviously seized any of these opportunities. The time is now. We got to work on all of them. We got to think 25 years out, and they're all in front of us. The job of the administration is to lead.
Thank you. And to Dorcia Pleers, 30 seconds.
Thank you for having me. And I would just like to end with saying, as a daughter of a police officer, I know the importance of having a safe city with safe streets. As the mom of 2 small girls, I know the importance of having a safe community that's thriving, but also as an elected official, I know the importance of being able to get the job done. And I have a track record of getting the job done here in this city, and so it would be my honor to serve as Albany's next mayor. Thank you again for having me.
Thank you. And that will be all the time we have today for our live forum. On behalf of WAMC, I want to thank our partners at the New York League of Conservation Voters Education Fund for putting this on. And remember, the first important vote in this race for mayor is June 24th. Before we go to All Things Considered, let's give all of the candidates a nice round of applause. You're listening to WAMC. Okay, that does it for this episode of the WAMC News Podcast.